Don't cause a scene, Dolly. Your sister is nesting. She needs a warm home to raise a legacy, not a cold career woman like you. My mother stood in the doorway of my penthouse, wearing my silk robe, while I stood in the hallway with my luggage. We engaged the deadbolt for her safety, she said, smiling. Go stay at a hotel, you can afford it. She slammed the door in my face. I stood there, locked out of the home I paid for, while my family stole it from the inside out. Before I tell you how I legally destroyed them without breaking a single window, tell me in the comments. What is the most entitled thing a family member has ever done to you? I'm reading every story. I checked into a hotel 3 blocks away from my building. It was a nice room, clean sheets, room service, a view of the city lights, but all I could think about was that I was paying $400 a night to sleep in a stranger's bed while my parents were drinking my wine in the living room I had spent 5 years saving to buy. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window and watched the snow fall, trying to understand how we got here. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't an impulsive decision by desperate parents. This was a liquidation event. See, in my family, children aren't people. We are investments. And there are 2 types of assets in the Miller portfolio. There is Brianna, the speculative asset, high risk, 0 return. But she makes them feel good because she needs them. She is the eternal project, the fragile thing that must be protected. And then there is me, the derivative asset. I learned what that meant 2 years ago. My father, Robert, needed a triple bypass. His insurance was garbage. He'd let the premiums lapse to pay for Brianna's second DUI lawyer. He called me from the hospital, weeping, terrified he was going to die. I didn't hesitate. I wired $52,000 directly to the hospital to cover the surgery and the rehab. I drained my emergency fund, because that's what a good daughter does. 3 months later, I went to visit him for Thanksgiving. There was a brand new SUV in the driveway with a red bow on it. It was for Brianna. She needs reliable transport for her new job, my mother said, beaming. I asked how they afforded it. My father looked me in the eye, the scar on his chest still pink from the surgery I paid for, and said, We had some leftover cash. We made it work. They didn't have leftover cash. They had my cash. The money I sent for his health became a bonus check for her lifestyle. That was the moment I realized they didn't see my money as mine. They saw it as family property that I was merely holding for them. I wasn't a person with property rights. I was a bank account that had finally matured. And now, they were harvesting the account. That's the weaponization of biology. They knew exactly what they were doing when they brought Brianna. They weren't just housing a pregnant woman. They were using her biology as a shield. They knew I wouldn't drag a woman in her 3rd trimester out into a blizzard. They knew the optics would destroy me. They were banking on my conscience being stronger than their greed. The next morning, I called my lawyer. He's a shark named Mr. Sterling who handles my corporate contracts. I told him I wanted them out. I wanted the police, the sheriff, the National Guard. I didn't care. Dolly, listen to me, he said, his voice dropping an octave. You have a problem. A big one. It's my house, I snapped. I have the deed. It doesn't matter, Sterling said. Your doorman let them in. He gave them a key card. In the eyes of Illinois law, they aren't burglars. They are guests who have established tenancy. And because you have a pregnant woman and it is winter in Chicago, no judge will sign an emergency eviction order. We are looking at 6 months, minimum, maybe 8. I felt the blood drain from my face. 8 months? They'll gut the place. They'll sell the furniture. They know that, Sterling said. They are counting on you settling. They want you to pay them to leave. It's a shakedown, Dolly. I hung up the phone. I looked at the gray sky. My parents had outmaneuvered me. They had used the legal system's protection of the vulnerable to protect their theft. They thought they had won. They thought I would write a check, cry about it, and move on because that's what the derivative asset always does. But they forgot what I do for a living. I don't just sign contracts. I find the loopholes that destroy the other side when they try to screw me. I realized then that landlord-tenant law wasn't going to help me. I needed to bypass the housing courts entirely. I didn't need an eviction notice. I needed a nuclear option. I needed to find the one thing they loved more than Brianna, more than the penthouse, more than their own reputation. I needed to find their greed. And I needed to use it to hang them. For 3 days, I went completely dark. I blocked my mother. I ignored Brianna's Instagram stories, which I knew were just photos of her feet propped up on my coffee table with captions like "Finally home." I didn't call the police. I didn't bang on the door. I let them sit in the warmth of my penthouse, drinking my wine and thinking they had won. I needed them comfortable. I needed them arrogant. Because arrogant people don't read the fine print. You see, my parents have a fatal flaw. It isn't just greed. It's the belief that they are smarter than everyone else in the room. They think rules are for other people, They think the legal system is just a suggestion, and I was counting on that arrogance to be the rope they use to hang themselves. On the fourth morning, I called my father. I used a burner number so he would pick up. Hello? His voice was groggy. It was 10 in the morning on a Tuesday, and he was sleeping in. Dad, I said. I made my voice small, trembling. I channeled every insecurity I had felt at 12 years old. Dad, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I can't fight you and Mom and Brianna. You win. There was a pause, and then a huff of satisfaction. Well, it's about time you came to your senses, Dolly. We're family. We shouldn't be fighting over a roof. I know, I said. I want to transfer the deed to you. I want to put the penthouse in your and Mom's name. That way, Brianna is secure, and I can just move on. That sounds sensible, he said, trying to hide the excitement in his voice. He was already calculating the equity. $1.8 million, dropping into his lap for free. But there's a problem, I said. A legal one. My lawyer says if I just give you the house, the IRS will treat it as a gift. The tax bill will be massive. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. You'd have to sell the place just to pay the taxes. I heard him shift on the bed. We can't pay that, Dolly. You know we're on a fixed income. I know, I lied. So, here is the workaround. We have to make it look like you bought it. We have to make it look like the down payment, that $350,000 I paid in cash, actually came from you. Like you gave it to me to hold. Okay, he said slowly. How do we do that? It's just paperwork, I said. It's called a source of funds affidavit. It's a standard form for the condo board. You just have to sign a statement swearing that the $350,000 was your money, kept in cash savings, that you gave to me to buy the unit. If you sign that, the condo board approves the transfer, the IRS sees it as your equity, and there's no gift tax. He hesitated. And here was the moment. The smart villain check. He wasn't totally stupid. He knew lying on forms was bad. Does the government see this? He asked. I don't want the IRS poking around my accounts. No, Dad, I lied smoothly. This is strictly an internal document for the condo board's approval file. It just sits in the building's management office. It's a formality to get your name on the deed. I held my breath. All right, he said. Send it over. Let's get this done. He took the bait. He thought he was outsmarting the tax man. He thought he was helping me help him steal my house. But he forgot the golden rule of negotiation. Never sign a document until you know what the other side is holding. While my lawyer was drafting the affidavit, I was doing what I should have done years ago. I was digging. I didn't need to hack anything. People put their entire lives on public record. They just assume no one is looking. I logged into the federal court records system. I searched for Robert and Karen Miller. I wasn't looking for money. I knew they didn't have any. I was looking for the absence of money, and there it was. A PDF file, time-stamped 6 months ago. In Ray. Robert and Karen Miller. Chapter 7. Bankruptcy discharge. I paid the 10 cents to download the file and opened it. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I scrolled through the pages of financial declarations. It was a massacre of bad decisions. Credit card debt. Personal loans. Medical bills. They had wiped out nearly $80,000 of debt. But I wasn't interested in the debts. I was interested in the assets. On Schedule A/B, property, they were required to list everything they owned. Cash. Savings, stocks, jewelry. Cash under the mattress. Line 17. Cash on hand. Their answer. $0. Line 20. Other financial assets. Their answer. $0. At the bottom of the page, right above their signatures, was the warning in bold, black letters. I declare under penalty of perjury that this information is true and correct. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. A cold, hard smile spread across my face. 6 months ago, my parents stood before a federal judge and swore on their lives that they were destitute. They swore they had zero assets so the government would wipe away their debts. And tomorrow, I was going to make them sign a new document video recorded and notarized, swearing that at that exact same time, they were actually sitting on $350,000 in secret cash. They couldn't be both. They couldn't be broke for the bankruptcy court and rich for the penthouse. If they signed my affidavit, they were confessing to federal bankruptcy fraud. It carries a penalty of up to 5 years in federal prison, and a fine of up to $250,000, plus immediate seizure of assets. They were trapped. Their greed demanded the house. To get the house, they had to claim the money. To claim the money, they had to admit to a felony. I forwarded the bankruptcy file to my lawyer with a simple note. The trap is set. Book the court reporter. It was time to give them exactly what they asked for. The conference room at Sterling and Associates didn't look like a place where families reconciled. It looked like a place where corporations went to die. It was all chrome, glass, and a view of the Chicago skyline that cost $600 an hour just to look at. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table, my hands folded on my lap. To my right sat Mr. Sterling, looking like a vulture in a bespoke suit. In the corner, a court reporter set up her stenography machine. Next to her, a videographer adjusted a tripod, focusing a high-definition lens on the empty chairs opposite me. This wasn't a casual signing. We had staged it as a formal deposition of facts to satisfy the condo board. I told my parents the building was so exclusive they required sworn testimony to prove the money wasn't laundered. It was a lie. Of course. The building didn't care. But the federal government certainly would. At 2 o'clock sharp, the elevator doors opened. My parents walked in like they were royalty, arriving at a coronation. Robert wore his Sunday suit, the one he usually reserved for funerals and loan applications. Karen was wearing a fur coat that I recognized it was vintage, something I'd bought at an estate sale 3 years ago. She had raided my closet before coming here. Brianna waddled in behind them, one hand on her belly, the other holding a Starbucks cup. She didn't look at me. She looked at the view, already calculating how good this office would look on her Instagram story. They sat down. They didn't say hello. They didn't ask how I was doing in the hotel. Robert just drummed his fingers on the table and looked at Sterling. "Let's get this over with," he said. "The traffic is terrible, and my daughter needs to rest." "Water," Karen added, pointing at a pitcher in the center of the table. She looked at me. "Dolly, pour your sister some water." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched them. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. The sound was like a gavel striking wood. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," he began, his voice devoid of warmth. "Before we proceed, I need to establish the ground rules. This is a sworn affidavit. The court reporter is transcribing every word. The video is being recorded for the official record. We know. Robert waved a hand dismissively. "It's for the condo board. Let's sign." Sterling didn't budge. He slid the document across the table. It was the source of funds affidavit. "Sir, as an officer of the court, I am required to issue a warning," Sterling said, locking eyes with my father. "You are about to swear, under penalty of perjury, that you personally held $350,000 in cash savings, and that you provided these funds to Dolly Miller for the purchase of the penthouse. If this statement is found to be untrue, or if it conflicts with other federal financial filings, you could face felony charges. Do you understand?" The room went dead silent. The hum of the video camera seemed to get louder. This was their off-ramp. This was the moment a smart villain would back down. This was the moment a rational person would say, "Wait, federal filings? What about the bankruptcy?" But Robert Miller didn't hear a warning. He heard a challenge. He looked at the document, then at me. He saw his daughter, the derivative asset, trying to scare him with big legal words. He saw the penthouse keys dangling just out of reach. His greed was so loud it drowned out his survival instinct. He laughed. A dry, arrogant chuckle. "I know what money I have, son," Robert said, picking up the heavy fountain pen. "I've been saving cash in a safe for 30 years. Mattress money. Uncle Sam doesn't need to know everything, right?" He winked at the camera. Sterling remained stone-faced. "State your name for the record and sign, please." "Robert Miller," he said, his voice booming for the microphone. He signed with a flourish. Karen signed next, her hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but from excitement. She was signing for a lifestyle she felt she was owed. Brianna clapped her hands softly. "Finally," she whispered. They leaned back, smiling like they'd just pulled off the heist of the century, outsmarted the IRS, the condo board, and their easy daughter. They didn't realize they'd just signed a confession. The affidavit ink was barely dry when the room's mood dropped fast and heavy, like a tornado warning. Robert capped the pen, slid the paper toward me, and reclined with his hands behind his head. "There," he said to Brianna, grinning. "Not so hard. Now sign the deed transfer, Dolly. Movers come tomorrow." I didn't touch the pen. I didn't even glance at the deed. I looked at Mr. Sterling. "Counselor?" Sterling nodded and opened his briefcase again, this time pulling out a thick red accordion file. He laid a stapled stack of blue-backed legal documents on the table, right on top of the affidavit my parents had just signed. Karen's face tightened. "What is that?" "That," I said, "is your Chapter 7 bankruptcy discharge from the Northern District of Illinois. Dated 6 months ago." Robert's grin didn't vanish. It curdled into confusion. "So what? That's old. Our debts are cleared." "Page 4, I said calmly. "Schedule A, B, assets." I tapped the line with my finger. "You swore to a federal judge under oath that you had zero cash, Zero savings. Zero assets. You told the court you were destitute, so they'd erase $80,000 in debt. Then I pointed at the camera. Still humming. Red light unblinking. But 5 minutes ago, I continued, you swore on video also under oath that you've been sitting on $350,000 in cash savings for years. Silence. Total. Brianna's eyes bounced between our faces like she was trying to do the math. Karen's hand flew to her throat. Robert's skin went a sick, ash gray. I found it, he stammered. After the bankruptcy. In an old coat pocket. Sterling raised an eyebrow. $350,000. In a coat pocket. It was a gift, Karen blurted. From a friend. Then it's income. Sterling snapped back, effortless. Which you failed to report to the IRS and the bankruptcy trustee. And since you also claimed it was mattress money saved over 30 years, you've now contradicted yourselves on the record. Robert's chair screeched as he surged to his feet. Give me that paper back. He lunged for the affidavit. Sterling dropped a hand over it, unmoving. I can't, Mr. Miller. It's evidence. Evidence of what? Robert shouted, veins bulging. We're helping our daughter. You tricked us. I didn't trick you, I said, cold and steady. I told you the legal requirement. You chose to lie because you wanted my home more than you wanted the truth. You walked in broke. And you just made yourself a felon on camera trying to steal my property. He hissed something and moved toward me. Sit down. Sterling barked pure command. The camera is still rolling. Every threat is being recorded. Robert collapsed back into his chair like his bones had turned to sand. For the first time, he saw the trap's shape. He couldn't be rich for the condo board, and poor for the federal government at the same time. Sterling adjusted his cufflinks like he was discussing weather. Mr. Miller, he said quietly, I have a duty to report. I can't sit on evidence of a felony. Before you leave this building, I will electronically file the video and affidavit with the United States bankruptcy trustee. Karen's voice shrank to a whisper. You can't. We're family. I'm not your family. Sterling replied. I'm a lawyer who likes keeping his license. And I should warn you because you admitted to hiding substantial assets while discharging debt. The trustee will seek an emergency asset freeze by morning. He leaned in. That means every account in your name gets locked. Pensions garnished, vehicles seized. You'll be stripped down to repay the creditors you defrauded. Brianna slammed the table hard enough to rattle the pitcher. Stop, she screamed, blotchy and shaking. I don't care about bankruptcy. I'm not leaving the penthouse. I have rights. I'm a tenant. Sterling turned to her, expression flat. Actually, Miss Miller, you're not, he said. You got access through fraud and false pretenses, lying to staff to bypass security. Under Illinois law, that kills any tenancy claim. You're not a resident. You're a trespasser. He checked his watch. Chicago police are already en route to remove unauthorized persons. If you're there when they arrive, you'll be arrested for criminal trespass. Brianna made a sound that was half sob, half shriek. Karen covered her face. Robert stared at the table, lips moving like he was trying to calculate a door out of a room with none. Then all three looked at me, shock, hatred, disbelief, like I detonated their lives for sport. And in a way, I had. People love telling you to take the high road. Just evict them. Change the locks. Don't ruin them. But you can't negotiate with a tumor. If I'd only evicted them, they'd have sued me for years, stalked me, drained me with legal fees and guilt until I was a husk. To save my life, I had to end theirs. I stood. My legs felt heavy, but my spine didn't bend. You think this is cruel, I said over Brianna's crying. You think I'm evil. You are. Karen spat through tears. You're sending your parents to prison. You're putting your sister on the street. No, I said. I'm cutting you off. You're parasites. And parasites don't stop until the host is dead. If I leave you $1, one foothold, 1 inch of leverage, you'll use it to destroy me. I met my father's eyes. The man who taught me love was a transaction. This isn't vengeance, I said softly. It's surgery. Quick. Final. Irreversible. I had to burn the bridge while you were still standing on it so you could never follow me again. I picked up my purse. Police will be at the penthouse in 20 minutes. I suggest you start moving. 2 uniformed officers arrived at the firm 10 minutes later, not to arrest my parents yet, but to escort hostile parties out. Sterling had called the moment Robert lunged. Watching them marched from a glass conference room felt unreal, a lifetime of control ending in fluorescent light. Karen's fur coat suddenly looked heavy. Brianna wasn't scrolling anymore. She was staring at the floor, realizing she wasn't sleeping in a penthouse tonight. At the doors, Robert twisted free just long enough to face me. Tears streaked his cheeks. He looked old. Dolly, please, he begged. We're your parents. Don't let them take everything. We did this for the family. I held his gaze. You're right. You did do this for the family. You chose the family you wanted to protect. My voice didn't rise. And it wasn't me. We can fix it, he pleaded. Tell the lawyer to stop. We'll leave. We'll go. It's too late, I said. The file is already sent. I stepped close, just out of reach. You sold me out for a house, I said. I sold you out for my freedom. Transaction closed. The elevator doors slid shut on his sobbing. I didn't go back to the penthouse. I signed Sterling's retainer, left the building, and went straight to the airport. The fallout hit like a hammer. The bankruptcy trustee moved faster than I expected. Within 48 hours, the emergency asset freeze landed. Accounts seized, car taken, pension garnished, their discharge revoked. The erased debt came roaring back with fines. They were charged with bankruptcy, fraud, and perjury, and they ended up serving a 5-year federal sentence. Brianna was removed from the penthouse that same night. No lease, fraudulent entry, trespasser. She spent months in a state shelter before landing with a distant cousin who didn't know the whole story. And the penthouse? I sold it. I couldn't breathe inside those walls anymore. After fees, I cleared $300,000, bought a one-way ticket, and disappeared. Now I'm sitting in a cafe in Notting Hill with a new number, deleted socials, and a clean horizon. To them, I'm a ghost. A ghost who won. If you believe cutting off toxic family is sometimes survival, hit subscribe and tell me. Would you have pushed the button, or would you have hesitated?